So it's going to get worse and worse on the battlefield, which is a place the Israelis are not accustomed to having things like that turn sour on them. So I think, as I said before, I think Netanyahu's days are numbered. And when he goes, I think Trump is astute enough to leap into that gap between whoever replaces him and Netanyahu's departure and whatever brouhaha occurred. They'll probably do like they did with Sharon. They're going to put Sharon in jail, and he had cancer, I think it was, really badly. So they excused him from that, and he died very shortly thereafter. I wouldn't put Netanyahu's life longevity very long either. But I think we're looking at an entirely different situation, perhaps developing in the Middle East, thank God. And it's going to be based in part, at least, on the fact that Israel's going to be defeated.
The only country that's backing it up with action have been the Houthis.
Yeah.
And they're an amazing, remarkable people. They've got every disadvantage against them, and yet they're not backing down. And hey, they put a notch in their belt, the Sioux Indians in the United States, counting coup. They got some U.S. scalps on their belt. They stood up to the U.S. Navy and stared it down. Now, Jordan and Egypt, they have the most direct interest of being bordering Israel and facing the potential of those. And so that's what I think Europe is going to be plagued with that. They're not going to be rallying around any one person. It'll be more like people in a lifeboat fighting over scraps of food, trying to stay alive themselves without regards to everybody else in the lifeboat.
And he left out Labour in England. I know he didn't mean to. They got the lowest rating in the history of their party.
The Labour and Conservative Party have basically now been surpassed, I'll put quotations around that, by the Brexit Party, Nigel Farage's party, except Farage again, he's not cracking above 30%. This notion that, they're really shifted like Marie Le Pen's party. Again, not a majority party in France. There is no one party that's a majority. There was a time when Labour could claim a majority status, or the CDU in Germany could claim a majority status. Those days are gone.
But my question is, because Larry's right, these leaders are going in the next 12 to 24 months, they'll all be gone.
Again, this is, like I said, this has been a more than 35-year project, going back with the foundation of when the Soviet Union broke up and then all these former Soviet states emerged. The United States could have made the choice, along with the Europeans, to let's embrace Russia. Because Russia was saying it all along, hey, look, let us join NATO.
And who's opposing him on any particular issue? And this is not just his cabinet or his cabinet equivalent people, special envoys and so forth. It's also the other leaders, like SOAR, for example, who sent his disciple with Zelensky. And everybody knows what this disciple is supposed to do. Zelensky and huge storm wishes with him, which are to continue the conflict as long as possible. So I think Trump is ill-served, and I think John's right about that. But Trump is aware of that, and so you have to really parse his remarks with regard to knowing he understands that, trying to figure out who he's saying it against or for, and what his really true motivations are, which I'm not even sure he knows from time to time. That makes it really difficult. I think Trump is perfectly willing to go ahead with the Abraham Accords minus Israel. And that's the hammer he will hold over Netanyahu's head. If Netanyahu doesn't respond, I don't think Netanyahu's long for the world right now. It's a multinodal world now. It's a world where there are a lot of near peer powers, or peer powers, if you will. It's a world that is going to be increasingly dominated by the Chinese and, to a certain extent, their alliances, as it were, and not us. And we've got to accept that, and we've got to deal with it. And we've got to deal with it with diplomacy and with economic power and cultural power and informational power and intelligence, not the military and not sanctions. We have to deal with it in an entirely different way. I love the expression that Xi Jinping uses from time to time. It's an ASEAN community type world. It's an ASEAN community type world. I had to work with ASEAN for a long time trying to bring about a policy of they're having some kind of security component. We were ramming it down their throat. You got to have a security. And their response was, no, we do not want a security component. That gets you in trouble. We are for finance. We're for informational exchange. We're for artistic and cultural exchange. We're for all manner of soft power, but we aren't for hard power. Thank you very much. We do not want to be a member of NATO East. That's what we're talking about now, I think. And we've got to deal with that. If we're not willing to deal with that, we're going to be a pariah of the world. And the rest of the world, 4/5 of which is not. This is a very dangerous game to play, and these Europeans have no idea how dangerous a game this is to play. We are responsible in many cases for putting them in place, as I've said other places. We've been working since 2002. I was there from 2 to 5 on getting governments elected in Europe that, one, do not represent their people, and two, represent our interests only. And we're paying for that now, paying for it dearly all across the enhanced membership in NATO. I think what Sergei Lavrov, Medinsky, Pavlov, others said in the last few hours, and the most operative phrase for them, is recognized by Trump. And that phrase is, got it written right here. We have to eliminate the basic, this is in English, eliminate the basic root causes of the conflict. How many times has Putin said that? How many times has Sergei Lavrov said that? How many times have any of the Russians said that? That's the real issue here. And you're not going to get any negotiations to succeed until you realize that's the issue based.
But if he does go with the deal with Iran, Iran's more than ready, because the real stumbling block is the inspection. And Iran's already said, come on in. You notice the desperation of these Zionists when they concocted this nonsense last week that, oh my God, we just discovered a secret, top secret. Man, this is the ultra top secret nuclear facility in Iran. And nobody knew about it until now. And in the corner, the source of it was this Iranian opposition group. I'm going, oh, gee, I bet they've never gotten a single dime from the CIA. A bunch of independent entrepreneurs out there. This thing was so ham-handedly handed to the media that the credibility of it was immediately called into question. But that's an example of the pushback that's coming.
I think you can say that. And Netanyahu is mostly responsible for that. But Trump has some of the, let's put it this way, he's the one who decided not to stop in Jerusalem on his way home. That's a blow. That's a blow, because one of Netanyahu's most powerful tools is when I crook my arm, the American president comes. And that's the reason he comes to Washington so often, to prove to his own citizens that he controls the sugar daddy, that he has the sugar daddy in his back pocket.
What you're seeing is a fracturing.
Albania is the place to do it.
Yeah. It's a lot of the organized crime is there. The cocaine flows freely. But Zelensky's, he's trying to posture this as if, that, oh, I'm going to show up Putin. Zelensky he's a pimple on a gnat's ass, is the reality with respect to Putin. Putin is not obsessed with him. Putin recognizes correctly that Zelensky's just been a tool. He's been a willing conspirator with the West in their entire effort to try to destroy Russia. And I think he realizes, man, he's got to keep this gig going, because once it's over, he's a dead man, literally. Yeah. So as long as they're still in the fight, he can keep up the pretense. But I think Zelensky's days are numbered.
Only in the fact that he was CEO of BlackRock, and I understand the CEOs of BlackRock. And he's got that kind of attitude. He's got that kind of corporate image attitude, that kind of, I can deal with anything. I can do it with Trump. I can do it with Macron. I can do it with anybody else in Europe. And oh, by the way, inexorable power has got to be recognized sooner or later. Those who don't recognize it are going to rue the day they didn't, and maybe even the moment they didn't. For example, the incident in the Baltic. It's inevitable. It's inexorable. It's happening. And if Europe can't accept it and the United States won't accept it, we're in trouble. We're in big trouble, because like I said before, we are 1/5 of the world. Less than that, really, if you factor out Russia from Europe. That's about 148 million people that don't count anymore. And so, the world's changing, it's shifting, and if you don't accommodate it, you are going to be left out. And Putin's got to be very careful about that. And he's got to be very careful about how he responds to it. The response in the Baltic was pretty good, I think. And those kind of responses need to keep happening without deleterious results. It's going to be a tough period. This is a period where Europe is fractured and falling apart. And we are partially responsible. And we're not doing anything right now to help them arrest that tendency and to start on a new path. I don't know if Trump's capable of that. I don't know if this government is capable of that, but it is a future problem. And throw that into what I said about the inexorable movement of power away from the West and toward the East. That includes Europe. And that's going to be an unconscionable position for a lot of leaders to take in any way to recognize and deal with. Look at what just happened, apparently, and I'm glad it happened, with India and Pakistan. They reconciled their differences. They exchanged a few rounds at one another and reconciled their differences. I'm sure that the good offices of Beijing and the good offices of Moscow had much to do with that, although I'm told we finally did weigh in. I'm not told how effective our weigh-in was, and I doubt it was very effective. I suspect the others did.
What you're seeing is the fracturing of Israel into three camps. Let's call it the settler camp, the Ben Gavirs, the Smotrich. They appear to be the largest, not necessarily a majority, but the largest plurality. And then you've got, let's call it the traditional European, the Golda Meir crowd. That doesn't mean that those two sides, they share something in common. It's a hatred of the Palestinians by and large, and a desire to destroy them. So I don't want to present that, there's one crowd that wants to work with the Palestinians. No, but they are diametrically opposed. And then you've got the ultra-Orthodox, the ones who are refusing to serve in the military and who do not recognize Israel as a fulfillment of prophecy. They think it is actually an abomination. The voices within, let's call it the European crowd, the Ashkenazi, have grown more strident, more aggressive, and a number of generals are speaking out. The attack on the head of Shin Bet by Netanyahu has elicited a great pushback. You've then got the military fatigue that's setting in among the reservists, because Israel is largely a reserve army. And I remember my boss at State Department was a retired Marine 06, Dominic Richard Aloysius Gannon. And at the very start of the first Gulf War, he says, yeah, now we're going to see why everybody thinks the Israelis are so great. And I said, why is that, Colonel? He said, they've only fought Arabs. And he was very, very disdainful of the Israeli army's military capability. And he said, look, they don't have this NCO corps
for temporary purposes. But once it's done, I think he thinks he can drive it home. So I think we're seeing a convoluted, if you will, talking pattern around Trump, added to by these advisors who are trying to do things to disturb it too. But I think the talks are going.
Israel's a lost leader. It's like having that relative move in with you that eats all your food, drives your car, and wrecks your house. That's Israel. There may be close to us as historically, but good God, they're a curse, a plague. So, the Gulf Arabs, I give Mohammed bin Salman credit. They understand. Throw $1 trillion at Donald Trump, and boy, he'll jump around the organ grinder monkey. He will dance and do whatever you need to do. And they knew exactly how to play him. And I think Trump's happy to be played that way. During the speech, when Trump said, hey, I'm going to lift sanctions on Syria. Boy, the crowd went wild. They were applauding like seals getting ready to get fed.
They were really colonialists, the most reprehensible of colonialists, and they wanted the money. They didn't have anything to do with Christianity, really, although some of them did. But a lot of these people in the bureaucracy, they're like the real Christians were then. They do think liberal democracy needs to be spread to the whole world. That's the reason Trump's remarks were so remarkable in the Middle East, because he repudiated all of that. Liberal democracy, Christianity, take your pick, is not what we should be doing diplomacy with. But these people believe that. They believe it in their hearts. And so you got to root all that out too. It's got to cease. And Ukraine was the proxy for making that happen. And Ukraine has been defeated by blood and treasure of the Russians. And it needs to be recognized that we need to stop. Until we get to that point, until Trump gets to that point, and maybe he is at that point, he just doesn't know how to get it into operation. We're not going to do anything. And Russia's going to keep on pushing and keep on winning and keep on, the blood will keep on flowing. And ultimately, as Clausewitz tells us, the momentum of the war will be so incredible that Russia will have all of Ukraine, which it doesn't want, because it knows that it'd have an insurgency right off the bat, that it'd be hard to manage and so forth. So it doesn't want that. It wants it to stop. And now the press is full of, this morning, these little innuendos about Putin being assassinated, about Putin losing his grip, about the Russian people wanting to get rid of Putin. This is all CIA shit.
Yeltsin made the request, Putin made the request, and they were turned down. And they were turned down for one very simple reason. The military industrial complex that they own Washington about to the same extent that AIPAC does insisted that we had to have an expansion of NATO, because if you expand NATO, then you get all these new NATO countries that have to buy all this new U.S. equipment and buy from these U.S. corporations whose bottom line depends upon expanding their economic growth.